Well, isn't that Mark Hinder? I can't hear you, Mark.
I think it just could be, Morten. Can you hear me?
It could. Yeah, I can hear you, and so can the rest of the people that are joining us. I can see that it's, people asking about these kind of webinars. I don't really understand the figures here because 72 registered for this particular event. 16 is live on this one, and I can see we have about another 40 on our live channel, so on YouTube. So watch out what you're saying, because it can be very expensive for you, right?
Exactly. So what you're saying is mind my P's and Q's, as they say.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. No, we're a little bit ahead of time, but that doesn't matter because I know you can talk forever. So let's start. Right? Mark, you work for Ricoh Europe, and you are responsible for business development. And I think that everything was just like in a perfect hotspot, and then COVID-19 came.
Yeah. It's and I think for me, it's we're incredibly busy in the business development area. It's become now paramount for us to mobilize. We've done that, numerous sessions, things like this webinar, and customers, I think, now are starting to realize exactly that COVID-19 is giving them a chance to maybe hit the pause button a little bit and understand exactly what they need to do and refresh some of the things that they perhaps have been doing subconsciously. But now is the time to really dig into what we're going to talk about today. Is clearly business planning and investment planning. So I think certainly COVID-19 has been a challenge for the industry. We know that. We've seen it from customer conversations and the impact of revenue and profit, and the way that it's taken our industry to what we're going to hopefully talk about today, which is what is going to be the new normal. What's going to be the back of this once we get through it, and I'm confident we will get through it. The industry is very resilient. We're very creative as an industry, and we always look for innovation and ideas. So I guess that's what we're going to try and understand today.
Yeah. When I asked you to participate in this Learn with us, I said the same thing to you as I said to everybody else, that I don't think the time is really the time where you pushes like huge investments and acquisitions, and whether it's in software and hardware or business development for that matter. I think that every communication comes a little. First you have the crisis itself, and then what is on the other side, and then you start to, and that was why I appreciated so much that you told me that you would like to talk about investment strategies, because investment strategies is not something that you have to buy now. It's more about how you look into how to define the need, figure out the risk of the investment, and evaluating the market opportunities and all those kind of things. And that is, as I said before we went live on this one, I said that your approach to it is, of course, it's branded Ricoh, but I think you have really done a good job of making something that is generic. And I think I appreciate that everybody of the people that I have been talking about this show is apparently open-minded for having a broader discussion about some subjects rather than just having product presentations. Does that resonate with anything in your mindset?
Exactly. And when you and I spoke and you offered me the opportunity, this is an industry coming together. It's all of us wanting one outcome, which is to be successful and to pull together through it. So what we're going to talk, it's true. And what we're going to talk about and what I'm going to take you through is what is effectively business acumen, generic ways to help businesses to plan and then look at how you get through this. I think the key importance is now we have to plan. In the past, perhaps we've been a little bit, we will do some planning, we'll get round to it. But now we have to plan, and we have to plan an exit strategy out of COVID-19, which is going to lead us to success and, more importantly, to revenue and cash. And we have got to focus on cash generation right now. That is key critical. If we're not generating profitable business, then the outcome could be quite interesting for many companies. So
are you talking about vendor side or printer side or both?
I think, wow, it's a good question. That's a good question. I think for all of us, we're all in this together. It's teamwork. You know, at the end of the day, we rely on our customers to, you know, that are going to invest with us. But if we're not giving something back, and that's what we're going to talk about right now, then we're not investing in them to sustain a future, which is going to help us to grow as well. So it's mutual benefit. And that's what we're looking at, and that's why business development services right now, you know, we're starting at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and we're working late into the evening. And the plans and everything else that we've been working on, we've mobilized us really quickly. You know, we're holding numerous calls online like this with customers to help them get through and to make sure that at the back end of this, they can not only survive, but then move into growth as well.
Well, I suggest that we turn off our cameras and our microphones, because just so people know that this is a pre-recorded session that Mark did together with Jan and me a couple of days ago, and then we have a chat afterwards. Okay?
Absolutely. Thanks, Morten.
Okay.
The industry has changed, and it's impacting the way we do business, changing the way we work, and impacting heavily on revenues. Media coverage of the pandemic continues to debate what life will be like after COVID-19. Many from the media are predicting things will change forever. For business, what does this mean, and how are we going to navigate a path through this? The issue is that when we are faced with a challenge, we first need to be optimistic and look at the glass half full. Capitalize on the opportunities COVID-19 can bring us, but be innovative. But what does innovation really mean? It all starts with an idea. There are many examples throughout history of how ideas have turned into new products that create wealth or help the well-being of society. For some, this process can come easily. For others, it can be challenging, but when you consider what's involved, the process isn't that difficult if you adopt some simple principles. The first step in the process is to ideate. This is where companies create lists of possible business concepts and ideas that could potentially be modeled. Don't be limiting either. No matter how strange the idea may feel, value everyone's input. The process of ideation has led to many new products and services being successfully introduced, and I'm sure the person who invented the sticky note was wondering if the idea would catch on. Once you have something you feel is usable, the next step is to create a mock-up or a prototype of your product or service. We'll go into this in a bit more detail shortly, but this is a key part in the ideation process. Our ideas must be linked to the user, the organization or individual that will require your product or service. Test first how much you know about them and their needs. What value will our idea have, and is there a large enough opportunity? This we will call market size or business scale, and we will touch on this more later in the presentation. When validating, ensure you can prove the user has the need through insight. The internet has allowed us to research insight easily to back up the business case to invest. Ricoh works closely with many leading industry research companies such as Keypoint Intelligence, IT Strategies, and Smithers Para, as well as trade and industry bodies. This insight allows us to demonstrate where opportunities exist, but at this stage does not confirm there is a workable business model. This we will go into shortly. Testing the insight matches our capability to develop the approach and generate income. We now have to consider which ideas or business concepts are actually achievable and can be modeled. The simplest approach is to create a list of ideas and match these to your existing capabilities. Then review if you have the ability to capture the opportunity. Two key areas: size of the opportunity in monetary terms and scale. Can we generate enough profit, and is the opportunity short, medium or long term? We need to ensure we are reducing risks and maximizing the business opportunity. We will be going through this in a lot more detail later on in the session. Don't be scared also to experiment with product concepts. It's another vital and essential part of developing ideas into solutions for clients and managing risk. The last thing is to launch a product or service and then find out that it fails due to either a technical reason or the user experience is not well defined. We have seen companies quickly producing, for instance, face masks to meet the demand for protective equipment during the COVID-19 pandemic. Prototyping is a key, and the new normal will be how companies work with their clients to prove the business case. Innovation will drive the industry to new opportunities, but those print companies who can turn their ideas into working concepts will be fast to capitalize once we come through this pandemic. Take time now so you're able to mobilize once the lockdown eases. COVID has also proved that the solutions and services the print industry offers can fulfill the needs of consumers and even grow in times of crisis. The increase in demand for greeting cards, for instance, during lockdown, households and consumers being forced to remain at home has meant that they have had to find ways to purchase cards and merchandise. The adoption of online shopping and ordering will, I'm sure, continue, and COVID has educated new audiences on how to create highly personalized cards. Web-to-print and cross-media marketing automation are providing essential services for remote, homebound users, and companies will take full advantage of this. Consumers and creators can develop their designs easily using these platforms, which are readily accessible. In the future, these people, now educated on how easy it is to design and ship personalized products, will create new markets or increase the demand for existing products and services that are available online. So we have an idea which we believe makes sense and will generate income. Now we need to review how we can reduce the risks of failure. To launch our product or service, we need to consider risk and ensure this is removed or managed. A balance between the potential income the opportunity can create and the risk and cost of failure. A tried and tested method is to use the Ansoff matrix. This teaches us when we move outside of our existing business, supplying existing products to an existing client base, there is an amount of risk. For instance, if we do product development, taking an existing product and creating something new, there will be an amount of investment required. Time, resources, technology, etc. All of these have to be factored in and calculated and managed. Market development can be as simple as taking an existing product and looking to attract new clients, or a combination of new products to target new clients. This again needs to be managed, and we need to consider every element and plan accordingly. The highest risk comes when we try to diversify, change direction completely, perhaps launching products we have never produced before, such as direct-to-garment printing. We must manage every element of risk and ensure we prove the business case. We have to ask ourselves, therefore, some key critical questions. The new normal may mean sales having to sell with no face-to-face contact, using video conferencing platforms. Therefore, how are sales going to be able to articulate and demonstrate our offerings? Will sales have enough contacts to chase? What will be the new KPIs that will be required to measure our business? These are and other important questions, I'm sure, that need to be answered. Ultimately, of course, we have to invest time to review our approaches and build a sustainable business model. The concept of the business model canvas provides us with the basis to do this, with 9 key areas to focus on. For instance, the first key step is your value proposition. What are you offering that is meeting the needs of your clients at a price that they feel they can afford, which will drive return that you desperately need? We have to follow the remaining 8 steps, capturing all of the relevant information to ensure the business model is sustainable and can be tested fully before we implement. So let's now look at the business model canvas in a bit more detail. The business model canvas, also known as the BMC, is a strategic management tool to quickly and easily define and communicate a business idea or concept. It's a one-page document which walks through the fundamental elements of a business or product, structuring an idea in a coherent way. Why do we use it? To quickly draw a picture of what the idea entails. It allows us to get an understanding of your business and to go through the process of making connections between what your idea is and how to make it into business. It looks at what kinds of customer decisions influence the use of your systems. It allows everybody to get a clear idea of what the business will likely be. If we then look at how we use it, the first step, box number 1, the value proposition. It's fundamental to any business or product. It's a fundamental concept of exchange of value between your business and your customer and clients. Generally, value is exchanged from a customer for money when a problem is solved or a pain is relieved, which is what we ultimately want to do. The next section then is customer segments. Customer segments is the practice of dividing a customer base into groups of individuals that are similar in specific ways, such as age, gender, interest, and spending habits. This is absolutely critical that we understand this segment and we look at where we are actually going to target. Are we going to be looking at B2B? Are we going to be looking at B2C? What types of individuals will look at using our products and services? So we need to be focused clearly on this area. The next area then is customer relationships. So we know our value proposition, we know the type of people that we want to target, we call these personas, and now what we want to do is see how strong our customer relationships are. We need to test if those relationships are strong enough that we can capitalize on them. If they're existing customers, can we easily, readily launch a new product that they're going to be attracted to and actually sell into that customer base? The next bit is channels. Now, normally this would be defined as, are we looking to sell face-to-face? Are we looking to sell online? But we also need to consider things like social media and the influence that these other channels may have in actually defining the purchasing process. So as we move through this canvas, we're looking at how we can absolutely build this to make sure that we have the right level of activities and details captured. In step number 5 comes the key critical bit. What's the scale or value of this business? Is it big enough to warrant us actually making the investment? But we won't know all of this until we've captured the other elements that are involved in the business model canvas. So we look at partners. Clearly, Ricoh, we are a partner to many customers, and we look to structure our activities in the way that we can support you to build business. But if you look at box number 8, key activities, this is where we're going to define what marketing activities, what sales activities, what product concepts. There's a whole host of different things that we need to consider and actually capture those into that area. Then we need to consider the resources that we've got as well that can actually help us to achieve the activities that we need. And then finally, the cost structure. What is the cost to do all of this? It's an involved process, but one which is actually pretty simple when you start to get into it. And we at Ricoh are using this with our customers to actually help them to navigate through COVID. So if we look now to marketing. Marketing is often overlooked, but is a key part of any business plan. Making sure your value is promoted and that sales can be supported is paramount. Here we give you just some examples of the things you need to consider when developing and executing effective marketing. So, in summary, what we're looking for is a business model that's linked to ideas and ideation that can be proven and that we can absolutely launch this out into the marketplace with minimal risk. To support you, Ricoh has a whole range of different services and solutions that we can put together to navigate through whether or not a business concept or a business idea is workable and achievable. Our industry has shown it can be resilient in times of crisis, and I'm confident we can pull through this. But the new normal may be different to what we have been used to.
Mark, thank you for a great presentation. Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
How long time did it take you to prepare it?
The tools and everything else that's gone into that presentation, we've been using now for some time. When you prepare a presentation, clearly it does take you time to, make sure the slides work and the flow right, So yeah, it's a few days. It's a few days. But the main point that we're trying to get across is that the process and everything that we do is not difficult to follow. You just need to take the time. And when you get into it, you'll be quite surprised on what actually can come out of all the back of these types of exercises. And and I think the other thing to point out is it's got to be teamwork. It shouldn't just be one person coming up with the ideas. You've got to value everybody from the production floor through to sales to marketing, logistics. Everybody has a voice, and they should be heard as well.
But the reason I'm asking is because sorry, the reason I'm asking is because I think that often you have not you, but you in general things is takes a lot of time not to just think the ideas, but also to not to present them either, but also then to do them. And I think that when you changed to Ricoh, you rather quick after you got into your new position, called me and said that you had some ideas about how to support the printing industry by also having this approach of being in an advisory role. Is this like a step that Ricoh is now taking in? I mean, because obviously everybody wants to sell, and obviously we need to focus on cash flows, and obviously we need to focus on revenue and profits and all those things, and that goes for every of us, right? But do you think that the shortcut, I know there's no shortcut, but do you think that the easiest way to get there in a longer term is to help everybody to understand some of the metrics and some of the ideas behind this? Is this, do you understand what I mean?
Let me answer the first part. Clearly, the reason why I'm a Ricoh is because Ricoh is investing heavily into business development services. We had to mobilize a lot quicker. So the plan, we have a plan. Let me put it that way, and we've been working on this plan for quite some time. COVID meant that we had to bring forward some of the things that perhaps we were going to showcase at Drupa, and we've mobilized in a way which can support customers in that first step of the process, which is the business model. There's a whole host of other things that we're looking to do and that you'll hear about from us over the course of the next few months. But once you understand that process, that then can take you into different areas. So if you and that process is not dependent on the size of the print company. So if you are a small print company or you're a large print company, that methodology can work for everybody. So by simply looking at the amount of business that you can generate from a cash point of view, and we're talking now at this current moment, it's all about generation of cash and profit. And if your activity is not going to generate cash or profit, then stop it. Focus purely and simply on the ones that you know can lead you forward. That approach that you've gone through will test that theory that it can actually be linked to either product development. If you're going to develop something new and offer that, if we take PPE, we've seen that from numerous print companies now that have moved into that, and they're capitalized on it and generating some good income, which they desperately needed right now. The next thing is what's going to come after PPE. And that's really then when you've got to start to process it through all of those fundamental steps. If you then consider, your team And in a team, there are numerous people who have got ideas that perhaps sometimes you just think, oh, do you know what? I just really wish this guy would just go away. He's just always coming up with ideas, but none of them ever seem to come through to fruition. But that process, but it's true. It's true.
Are you talking about me?
More, and would I dare? Would I dare? But I think that process then allows you to filter the good ones and put them in a priority matrix where you work on the ones that can generate the cash. But then you've got to consider the other elements to it. You're going to have salespeople that are capable to sell. The new normal may mean that we have limited, for a period of time, it could be a year, it could be 18 months, nobody knows, of limited face-to-face contact. Therefore, you've got to be working in a virtual environment, video conferencing like this. So, you know, personalities come across in different ways. You know that you and I have known each other for a long time, and yeah. You know, some people have an approach where their personality is great in a face-to-face environment, but when you put them then behind a video screen and a camera and you ask them to sell, it can be challenging for them. So that all of this has got to be comprehended, and we've got to put it in a way which allows us then to take the business forward. And we've got to also capitalize on the technology and the services that are out there. Work from home is going to be quite a new norm for some time.
But the reason I was asking was because, and maybe you answered, maybe I just didn't understand it 100%, is, you know, if we put it to exaggeration, right? It's like in old times you had, like, you know, see if I can find something that looks like an order book, right? You went into the shop and said, okay, you need this, and then you say, oh, you just sign here, and then we send it to you, right? Then everybody started to talk about that project sales, because we needed to understand the customer's needs, right? And I think it's like every time we update technology, and the technology becomes, to some extent, maybe more productive, but also becomes to some extent more expensive, right? The investment is more. I mean, if you buy a Ricoh inkjet engine and a full bindery automated, that takes you down for some dollars or some euros, right? And I'm just saying that the knowledge and the risk that you take, you also talk about risk in your presentation. I'm just saying that those kind of decisions need maybe better decisions than the mom and dad shop had in the old times, where it was like father to son saying that, okay, son, listen, here's the keys, and next time you upgrade a 4-color machine, that would be great, right? I mean, so the knowledge that you need to have in order to do the investments without jeopardizing your own future, to some extent, is,
well, that's what we call insight. That's insight. That's in the presentation. So,
which is why I'm asking, because I'm just wondering if that is like something in general there's a higher demand for, or need, at least.
Yeah, you could look at the purchasing process in the past as being slightly emotional. You know, somebody would look at, you know, you'd walk into, let's take a car. You walk into a car showroom, you see the car you love, and you think, actually, that is the car that I'm going to go for. And it's an emotional connection between you and the product. I think now within our industry, there is still a degree of emotion. People need to feel confident that they, you know, they can invest. So you're still always going to get that element to the buying process. But now what you've got is a lot more intelligence, the insight that backs up that the business model actually can be sustained. And, you know, we've said this to numerous print companies, you know, if there isn't a strong business model, don't invest. If there is, then these are the steps that you need to do to actually then progress from, once you sign the order paperwork, to implementation, to training, to then looking at, you know, engaging with your customers, etc. So the idea of product development, for instance, can be looking at maybe a new device. It could be inkjet, it could be direct to garment, it could be anything that's there, and looking at what products can you absolutely create that has market appeal. Then that leads into marketing planning. You know, how am I going to reach that customer base? What channels am I going to use? Andreas talked about social media. It's important. It's really important to make sure that you've got a strong presence, but you've also got to have a personality when you go online. So just saying that you have a website, or that you are doing social media, or you're just putting content back out there, that isn't giving people that emotional connection between who you are as an organization. So you've got to create a persona when it comes to social media as well.
And how is that for? I mean, you represent a large company, and the bigger the company becomes, the more difficult it is to get the social or the relation. I mean, I don't know about Ricoh Europe, but I know for sure that some of your American colleagues, they're not so easy to get hold on if you try to call them, if you try to write them, or and maybe that's a cultural thing. But I'm just saying that if you need that personal relationship, if you need to have the insight, if you need to have, in a social media profile, you also need to have like identity kind of thing, right? It requires also that you have a way higher interaction with your customers than you used to, right? Or even prospects, I would say.
No, absolutely. And again, it backs up why Ricoh Europe are investing in me and investing in business development services, because we support two key fundamental parts of the business. We clearly support our customers, but we also support our internal salespeople as well. So the education, the programs, everything that we do from business development services is educating internally as well as is educating externally. And we're always looking at how we can do that to make sure that we're promoting the best of what we can in a way which creates effectively a shared mutual benefit. The customer can see value in what we do, and we've got the customer where we know that we've actually got a plan on how we're going to support them long term and develop that customer's business.
Sounds great, and I think that it sounds promising because, to be honest, I believe that what you're saying is for sure true. But I also think that, fortunately for the printers, a lot of vendors have started to see that they need to support them in not just a short-term business perspective, but also in how to develop the industry. I can't help referring to a conversation I had with a gentleman from Heidelberg 2 weeks ago, I think it was, because I was saying to him that I think that one of the things that I feel a little bit sorry about for the printing industry, that we're so good focusing on applications and on technology, and so little on how to sell more print and how to put it in, so the end customers will value the printed product, not maybe as a comparison to social media, but as something that can do something else too. Is that something that you believe that Ricoh also in your role and maybe in the future will be also focusing a little bit on helping the PSPs to engage more with their clients?
I think you might have read my mind a little while ago. So, okay, so let me share on some of the topics that we're working on and the modules and everything else. So we need to start to think about a product as a business need. We tend to focus a lot on printed products and try and almost to kind of adopt like a retail type approach. We produce X, Y, and Z at a price, and then we put it up on a website and we go and promote that, that product. We've now got to start to think of what if we are creating solutions to people's needs. So if you take the greeting card, which people have always looked at and said, you know what, this is great. And there's been some absolutely amazing designs, some really great innovation platforms that are out there. But when a crisis hits, the first thing is that people say, I can't get to see my elderly parents, but I still want to let them know that I care about them. So they take pictures of their children. They're even, taking pictures around the house, creating funny types of cartoons or whatever, uploading it and then sending it. And it was proven from just watching different media outlets and stuff like that, the impact on people's mental state when they are forced into isolation can be quite challenging. So by just a simple little thing like that is creating a solution to somebody's need. And we've got to now start to think about that a lot more when we actually create the products and services that we're going to then target out to the companies that we're looking to achieve. So yes, in answer to your question, yes, absolutely we are.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I'm just watching the chat while we're talking, not so much activity, but Miriam Halabivichova or something like that from I think she works with Konica Minolta, actually. She writes, Mark, do you think that local smaller printer can succeed in online business, for example, with postcards, considering there is so many bigger players at the market already, players like mypostcard.com or Vistaprint? What is the key for smaller printers to enter online world? I think that is extends very well to what you're just talking about. So what would you say to her?
But the first thing is you've got to understand what the investment costs are going to be, and whether or not it's worthwhile even entering into that market. Because it's right, there are some bigger players out there, but let's look at it in a different way. Smaller players can be disruptive, and they can mobilize very quickly. And it all, again, depends on innovation and ideas. And if you can create a product or find a gap in the market which somebody else hasn't done, and you can exploit it very quickly, then you can go after it. But also, if you consider what's going to be potentially new opportunities, direct to garment, for instance, t-shirt printing, we've seen many companies over the last 5-10 years going through that platform of ideation to create new products to take it to market. And I think this is where you've got to sit and do your research, look at who your competitors are, where there are potential gaps in what their offerings are, and then go off and test. So, you know, speak to some consumers, find out what is working well, what isn't working well. Again, the user experience of the platform is absolutely critical, because we've seen so many of these types of platforms where you start to create a postcard, or you start to create a greeting card or something like that, and then suddenly it doesn't go the way you want it to go. Searching for templates can be challenging on some of these platforms, you know, so it is going to be about doing your research and then finding the gap in the market.
I, of course, don't know her motivation for asking this question, but I couldn't help thinking a little bit, because I think that all the digital print vendors have also been focusing on, of course, variable data, small print runs. I even think that a lot of you guys have been focusing on, or telling your customers to go into small print run packaging, and, you know, all these, you know. And I was just wondering, because there was I can't remember, I think maybe you were there, because I was with the Print Next event in Stockholm a couple of years ago. The Swedish Federation, they made this huge survey where they asked who's actually creating value. And it seems that in this industry, it seems that every time a products get a lot of attention from vendors moving in that direction, the first thing that happens is that you get a larger supply than demand, which of course then leads to lower prices.
Exactly.
And then leaves that segment of the market into commodity, and that leaves that nobody's making money on it, right? So I'm just wondering, because if you, for example, when Miriam is asking about the postcard thing, maybe it is a business where you should just say that, okay, it's for the few. It's for the few that are really big, really.
Well, that's going to be an output from your business model canvas, because if your cost structure is so high compared to your income, then it tells you not to invest. So that's why that BMC structure, the 9 stages that you go through, will absolutely lead to probably the conclusion that says this one is not a workable business model.
And that is where you would help, because I mean, I think that the if you should be a little bit maybe unfair, because I know that you have a genuine interest in what you're saying, but I also know that, or maybe I'm wrong, but it used to be that digital print vendors, they had a very, very big focus selling a lot of units, right? So sometimes it's like, could you be in a situation where it could be like, okay, we really want to support the business approach to our customer, but we way more want them to buy a box. I know it's unfair. I'll answer
it, because you know you've on times I've been on your channel, you've always asked me difficult questions, and I've always given you a response, and I will never ever not give you a response, because that's just not fair. So I think it's put this way: as a print company has got to meet their targets, and they've got to achieve their targets. Vendors have got to meet their targets as well, because at the end of the day, to grow and then to take that income that we generate to then reinvest in new technology and new services, we've clearly got to sell. But I think we've got to look at it and approach customers in a way which meets the customer's needs. So the hardware, the solution, the software, the business development services, all of that has got to be tailored to exactly what that customer expects from us. That's called a partnership. And if there is no partnership, then you don't take it forward, and you lose that customer ultimately anyway.
And I would have been upset with you if you didn't have answers to my questions, because you always do have them, right? So that was great. I got a few questions here that are not online but was sent on an email. So I have here, it's 4 or 5 questions, so let's take them. The first is doesn't even say the name of the center, but is Is it time during COVID-19 for companies such as Ricoh to launch new products and solutions?
Well, absolutely, because the reality behind it is that the new products and services that we always bring to market are always better, and probably in some reality will meet or develop the customer's business in a different way. So you can't stop launching products and services just because of a crisis. What you've got to do then is offer the support and everything else around it to make sure the customer can see the business benefit, and that then supports the investment.
Okay, clear answer. Robert has sent, first he said hi to you. I think it's Robert from Render Press. You should know him.
Okay, yeah, I think I do.
Yeah. And then he writes, right sides and in brackets, capacity, equipment is important. Utilization is key to profitability. Too much iron on the floor drains profit. I don't think that's a question. I think that's a statement, isn't it?
I think that's probably a statement. I think that's the statement. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's similar to you know, if you have an offset press and a budgetary hourly rate, and that press is not running, and you know, you've got to make sure it's utilized in the most effective way. But that again is all looking at your production processes and making sure they're optimized and most efficient for whatever jobs you want to run on.
And in extension to that email I referred to before, do you feel that commercial printers can work remotely and stimulate enough interest in their products and services?
I have actually been really encouraged. I think when it first happened, we all saw the rabbit in headlights moment where we were completely startled and we went, oh my God, how are we going to get through this? But then people picked up the challenge, and I've been talking to commercial printers who have been doing their own webinars and doing their own events with 30, 40, 50 people joining and actually getting some business on the back of it. So yes, they can, but they will need support. You know, selling online is different to selling face-to-face where you've got a personal relationship. And demonstrating your capabilities can be slightly different, but that's again around presentation skills and all that sort of stuff. But the answer is yes.
I also think that it comes a little bit down to the platforms. As I mentioned, I don't know if you were here from the beginning, but this is the first time that we're doing anything like this on INKISH, and we invested in this webinar jam platform. And I must admit that I feel that it goes pretty smooth, and it works with having both the combination of chat and films and things like that. But it doesn't replace, for me, it doesn't replace anything. It's an it's something that is added to it. When we did over the Skype for the past 3 weeks, it was really good. And we had decided to do it also after the COVID-19 because it gives us another advantage that we can, you know, communicate fast and easy and cheap, which is not too bad either. But it will not replace the INKISH films that we go out and go to your customers and to your competitors' customers and see what they do in real life applications. I think that is so that is where I you know, kind of see this. But you obviously you have been under lockdown as well. So have you been using? I mean, obviously you use Teams and all these Zoom and these things. How is that from a? I mean, I guess you talk to some of your colleagues who's in sales. Is it a limiting factor, or do they reach their budgets anyway?
The first thing that we realized is we didn't have a background. So we were doing Teams and our branding wasn't in the background. So we quickly then, because we do use MS Teams, and one of the features you have in MS Teams is a green screen where you can use the face and then you can have the logo in the background. And what became quite interesting was then the amount of different pictures that people were using when they were coming onto MS Teams. So internally, I won't go into it, but you can imagine the types of pictures that were coming up. But
no,
then,
I can't, Mark. Sorry.
No, you can't, and don't go there, Morten. But then, from a corporate perspective, clearly, Henkaku, you know, our branding and everything else, we made sure. So that's when you then got to start to think about it. So if you do start, and I'm quite disappointed, Morten, because you don't have INKISH TV behind you right now. Where's the branding? Come on. But this is the thing, exactly. But this is what you've got to consider. So when you start to move into all of this sort of stuff, yes, it's great to mobilize and to go into these platforms, but then you've got to consider that, you know, what are you then going to, how are you going to capitalize? How are you going to develop it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Mark, we were so fortunate that we started like 3 minutes before because Andreas for once didn't talk as much as he used to. So that gave you actually 10 minutes more, because now it's almost 2 p.m. and this is the end of today's Learn with Us. I think it's been brilliant talking to you and to
Thank
all
you.
the other people as well. I hope that even now your session is over. I hope that you will maybe join us for some of the other sessions the following days.
I've signed up for the whole week. Clearly, I've got a day job to do as well, Morten, to support customers, because
really?
they you know, yeah, exactly. You know, there's a lot of customers that need our help right now. But certainly, and I just want to thank you, the INKISH team, and also the rest of the industry for pulling together to make this happen. Because to get through this, we all need to work together.
Appreciate your words, Mark. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon. Okay.
Thank you. Cheers, Morten. Take care.
Yeah, you
Cheers.
too.
Bye-bye.